Welcome to the EOB podcast, where we discuss the weekend box office and the new openings this week. I am Benno, and joining me is Sen Duong. So let's begin. Sen, are you there?
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So, another quiet weekend.
Yeah, well, Exodus, Gods and Kings did 10 million less than we predicted.
Yeah, I mean, we were thinking somewhere around 35-ish or so, or somewhere there.
Yeah, at least kind of along the, Noah ballpark.
Yes, yes. But as I said, right, if no one is protesting, no Christian group is protesting your movie, then you didn't have a good movie. So here it goes.
I guess you're right about that.
Yes, here it goes. Even though it came in number one, it only made 24.5 million. That's the estimate, and it may fail to reach 100 million domestically.
Yeah, it may. And the thing is, with a budget of 140 million, unless it does well overseas, which I think it probably will, it might not make back its budget, or it might not be profitable.
How can you explain the performance?
Well, I saw it like most of the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it has a tomato meter of 27 or 28?
Yeah, 28%, and it has a cinema score of a B minus, which is
really bad because
a passing grade. But when you're talking about cinema score, it's not good.
For people who aren't familiar with cinema score, on average, every movie gets a B plus. So if your movie gets under a B plus, that's kind of like equivalent to D or F.
Grade inflation. So
yeah, grade inflation.
Right.
So B minus is actually pretty bad, just as bad as the 27% or 28% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Right.
So it's getting a failing grade from both critics and audiences.
Right. Sometimes a movie may have like poor reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, but audience loved it. Except this one, they're both in agreement, it seems. Yeah,
and I could see why. I saw it last week.
Okay, yeah, tell us about it. Where did it fail?
On a technical level, it's beautiful. Like all Ridley Scott films, it's beautiful. The set designs are great. It looks technically flawless. But on a entertainment level, it's boring. It's almost like he went through the checklist of a Moses movie. Oh, here are the plagues. Here are the 7 or 8 plagues that goes to it, and he makes all the check marks, and you see it, and you're like, oh, okay. There's no suspense. There's no like, oh, geez. Here's these Egyptians, and you don't feel any like, oh my goodness, there's all these terrible things happen to these Egyptians. You're just like, oh, okay, checklist 1 done. Red Sea. Okay, sea of blood, check, done. Children's getting killed, check, done. You don't feel like, oh my God, these kids, they're getting killed. Oh, I should feel really terrible, but it's almost like, okay, check.
Right. So basically, you don't care about any of the characters. You don't care what happened to them, even though, oh yeah, the flood's coming on. Locusts are eating up the food.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like he went through this outline, this checklist of what you should include in a Moses movie, and he just kind of checked it.
Oh, that's true. But to be fair, you're telling a pretty familiar story. Ridley Scott is.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, there are people who follows formulas. There are films that follows formulas, but they do it well enough that you're engaged and you're interested and you're invested in the characters. In this one, it almost feels like, oh, here's a checklist of what we have to do, and then he just kind of did it. He didn't brought in anything new. Like Noah was interesting. As soon as the Watchers appear in Noah, there's a fantasy element that's kind of thrown in. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is not the Christian film that I expected. It actually is a fantasy film. It's something new, and it brought something interesting to the story.
Yeah.
And I actually care about it more because, it's different. The director, the makers of the film actually tried to do something different and didn't give a crap about what Christians thought of it or would think of it. It's like, I'm going to throw this element in here to make this story more interesting and to make this a good movie.
I think one of the posters for the movie really highlight what the movie is about. And it's one lone small figure, like tiny, standing in front of what appears to be whirlwinds, water parting of the sea. And you barely make out who that character is. we should know that it's Moses, right? It's special effects over characters, really.
Yeah.
In the story about Moses, it's really about I think 7 or 8 disasters that befell the people in Egypt. It plays a pretty big part, and unfortunately, I think they probably highlight that more than necessary, and they forgot the character development or make us care about the characters.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue there. It's kind of like on a technical level, it's just all of these tragedies and all these effects are really well done. They're impeccable. But at the same time, you just feel like they just did it. When you're not invested, all the effects just feels like stuff happening on screen that you don't care about.
Right. Okay. And there it goes, 24.5 million, and looks like it's probably gonna make between 80 to 90 on a good day when it's said and done domestically.
I think on Box Office Mojo, the Way Supers, he mentioned how in December films are more leggy, which tends to be true. So we'll have to see in the coming weeks. Noah opened with like 43 million and it ended up with like 100 million, which isn't a very good multiple, because for a movie that opened to 43 million, you expect it to make at least 120, 130.
Right.
So whereas films in winter they tend to be more leggy. Like a film that opened with 25 million can make 100 million or even 130 million. So we're gonna have to see in the coming week.
Right. Because remember, like January and February are the dumping grounds of studios.
Yeah.
They just release movies that they have contractual obligations or can't find a better spots for them, and that's where they go.
Yes. So we're gonna have to see. The one thing that Exodus has going for it is, unlike Noah with the protesters, it has none of that. So it's not gonna offend Christians. I guess the only thing they might find offensive is that God is played by a little kid, or is being portrayed as a little kid.
Okay.
Otherwise, the plagues and all those tragedies that they put upon the Egyptians aren't very offensive, or it's pretty by the books.
Okay.
So they might go see it during Christmas.
Okay, well, we'll have to see. And I think the challenge for this movie is to see if it will cross 100 million. All right, let's move on to number 2, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. In its 4th week, and it made 13.2 million over the weekend. Domestically, it has crossed 270 million. It's right now 277 million, doing 611 million worldwide.
Yeah, very impressive.
Yes, which is still below Catching Fire, 865. But we are talking about a movie that's broken into 2 parts, so cumulatively it's going to make more than the previous 2 movies because it's split into 2 parts.
Right, and it still has a ways to go.
Right.
And it's actually holding up decently.
Yes.
Only a 40% drop, and Way Supers from Box Office Mojo said on its current track, with current trend, it can become the top grossing film of 2014. And this movie really pretty much justify for the studios breaking trilogies to 4 or 5 movies. For some movies like City of Bones, similar, if it fails, then it fails. But if it succeeds, like the second movie is good, then they can break the movie into the third movie into another one. Or the final book into another movie.
Exactly, because it works.
Yeah, it worked for Twilight, it worked for Harry Potter, and so far it's working for Hunger Games. And if they do a decent job with the second Divergent movie, they're already planning to split the last.
They are doing that.
The last book's gonna split up into 2, and eventually a director's gonna say, hey, if it works so well splitting it in 2, why don't we split the last book into 3 films?
Oh, right. Well, look, Peter Jackson.
Oh, yeah, Peter Jackson took The Hobbit and turned it into
Hobbit, one book.
Yeah, right.
And he split into 3.
Yep, and it works.
It works. Okay, but it depends on the properties. All right, let's move on to number 3, Penguins of Madagascar, 7.3 million, nearly 60 million domestic, 175 million worldwide, and it is a DreamWorks movie which is released by Fox. And according to analysts, it's going to be another loss, or another write-off for DreamWorks Animation. You think DreamWorks will remain an independent studio by the way it's going?
Yeah, the current trend is not good for them. How to Train a Dragon 2, Turbo didn't do that well. This didn't do that well.
Rise of the Guardians.
Rise of the Guardians.
Mr. Peabody and Sherman.
But you know what DreamWorks has going for it though? The international market has been very strong. I mean, even Turbo ended up doing almost 300 million worldwide.
That's true, but because of the weakness in the domestic market, right? I worry about its independence. I mean, it's gonna get acquired by somebody.
Yeah. The trend has been going downwards. Overall, worldwide or domestic.
Right.
But I guess if they're pitching themselves, they would say, hey, despite Turbo and Penguins of Madagascar's domestic performance, on a worldwide level, they have been doing decent. But the overall trend, box office trend for their films have been on a downward spiral.
Right, they've been writing off a couple of films in a row now, and it's not good. Although being acquired by another company might not be a bad thing, because some of the decisions for some of these movies are not good.
Yeah, it'd be funny if they get acquired by Disney, because DreamWorks Animation originally did stuff from is it Jeffrey Katzenberg?
Jeffrey, yep.
Yeah. So he was originally from Disney.
But on the other hand, why would Disney want to acquire DreamWorks?
Yeah, that's true.
The movies are not doing well, and I don't know. It could be. I mean, Disney could revitalize DreamWorks, but why?
But why would they? They already have Disney Animation and Pixar, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's Penguins of Madagascar, 7.3 million, except that it cost
132 million.
32 million to make, and so far it's not looking good.
Yeah, domestically it's not gonna make. It's gonna be a money loser. Worldwide, it might break even, possibly. But it's not looking good for DreamWorks Animation overall. I mean, they already maxed out on their Shrek movies. And Kung Fu Panda, they kind of maxed out on that too. I mean, the only saving grace for Kung Fu Panda was that it made over 100 million in China.
What I'm surprised is that why don't they acquire some children's books and animate those? That seems to do well. But they seem to be invested in original properties.
I don't know, like which children's books have been adapted and have done well. Disney have taken classical fairy tales and turning them into successful film adaptations, but even then they kind of maxed out on that too.
Universal got the Dr. Seuss's books, right?
Yeah, but they were kind of hit and miss with those.
Yeah, true, but they're okay. I mean, they didn't make money.
I mean, they were hit. The Cat in the Hat was a stinker
because they made it live action, and it wasn't really a children's movie. It has all these sexual innuendos and other stuff on it.
And even the Jim Carrey and Steve Carell one, the elephant one.
Horn Hears a Who or something like that.
Yeah, Horn Hears a Who did decent, but it wasn't a home run. Right. I think it made about 140 million. Yeah, on a budget of about the same thing. So it's been kind of hit and miss. Dr. Seuss properties.
But I'm saying it's an option, right?
It is an option. It is an option. At the same time, you can't blame them for doing original content, right?
No, because I want them to do original content, but currently it's not working.
Since it's not working, why not try adapting?
Yeah, why not try something else? Because as we discussed in a previous podcast, right? We think that it's really the art style. Of the movies. Right. If they would change it to be more cutesy, I think it would work better.
Right, and they kind of exhaust their sequels. They exhausted Shrek, they exhausted Kung Fu Panda. They have, they're doing How to Train Your Dragon. And even that is kind of on a downward spiral too.
Right, I mean, you can only do so many movies of the same kind, sequels, and expect it to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, you can only go back to your sequels for so long.
Right, people want to see new stuff, really.
And How to Train Your Dragon is the only sequel left that they can exploit. Well, I guess they can do another Madagascar because the last one did pretty well.
Shrek still has some goodwill, right?
No, the fourth one did, compared to the first three, dropped off tremendously. So.
Yeah, but you have to see it with the stories. If they have a good story, they can make it because people like the characters.
They do like the characters, but by the fourth one, you can tell the interest level has dropped tremendously. Like Madagascar, if the third film, Madagascar, the third film actually did pretty well. So then you can do a fourth one knowing that, hey, the interest level is still there. But whereas Shrek, from the third film to the fourth film, has dropped off a lot. So you know that people, the interest level isn't there anymore.
Okay, so guess they need to figure out some way to save themselves, or else they'll end up a subsidiary of a Chinese company.
Yeah, that's true. You said, maybe they should start adapting stuff because their original creations aren't doing that well.
Okay, we're doing the business development of DreamWorks.
I know. They should just watch. They should just listen to our podcast.
But what do we know? Okay, let's move on to number 4. Top 5.
Yeah,
you were right.
But you know what? I did after I watched the movie, I did a write-up, and I was saying that it could make as much as 15.
Wow. It could make 15 because it was only released in less than 1,000 theaters.
I've seen movies targeted at the African American audience do 15 in less than 1,000 theaters. That's why I was like, after I saw it, I'm like, wow, this is really good. This is the best Chris Rock film I've ever seen that kind of capture his edginess, his sharp wit from his stand-up act that I saw on Comedy Channel or HBO.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure about HBO. I think on Comedy Central. It's actually very, very good. I feel like it could have legs. I think the word of mouth will be pretty good.
It could surprise because as we said earlier, the holiday season are really slow for the box office. Because I think people are just out there shopping and saving money for gifts. And movies, are not a top priority
until the Christmas and New Year season.
Right. That's when all the gifts are bought. And they can spend again.
And it is the Christmas, New Year's, those 2 weeks are the second best movie going season of the year.
Yes, and
summer.
And don't be surprised if top 5 expand to over 1,000 theaters.
Yeah, 7 million for under 1,000 theaters is pretty good, and reviews have been great.
Right, and it has a better per theater average than Exodus: Gods and Kings.
It has a 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is just as high as Big Hero 6. So I think it's a movie that can have legs and that can play over the holidays and eventually be a decent sized hit.
Okay, all right. And let's move on to number 5. Hanging in there is Big Hero 6, 6.1 million. It's made over 185 million domestic and 253 million worldwide, and it's doing quite well for Disney.
Yeah, it's still hanging in there. The drop-off is only, 24%. So it looks like it'll stay around through Christmas and New Year's.
Okay, so you think it'll cross 200 million?
Oh, definitely. It'll definitely cross 200 million.
Okay, so moving on. Number 6, Interstellar. 5.5 million this weekend, 167 million domestic, and 622 million worldwide.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much more we can say about it other than...
Yeah, I mean, it's released at the same time as Big Hero 6, and it has done quite well, and pretty much those two have stuck together like, one above and one below. Throughout this time release. And it is holding up just as well as Big Hero 6, which is surprising to me
because I didn't like the ending.
It's one of those thinking movies, Well,
that's the thing. That's where I felt like the ending failed because it was supposed to be a thinking movie, and the ending wasn't like a thinking type of ending. It was more of a easy cop-out. But it's one of the few adult films out there, and people finding it, and I guess people enjoying it more than I did.
Christopher Nolan is a brand, and they just want to see his movies.
I think the great thing is at least he, is at least ambitious, and he at least tries new things. So it has that freshness, that intriguing feeling, that interest.
Right, right. I mean, right now Nolan has attained a status that even if it fails, people would want to watch it anyway because he wants to try new things.
Yeah, and he built up all that goodwill.
So it's going to be an interesting movie, even though some part might not work.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to number 7, Horrible Bosses 2. In its third week, made 4.6 million. 43 million domestic so far, and yeah, another sequel that fails to live up to the first movie.
They might actually lose money on this because the budget is 42 million and it might get to 60 with the holidays, but at the same time when you throw in marketing costs, and I don't see this doing well in foreign markets.
Yeah, comedies usually don't do well overseas.
Yeah, so even though it is modestly budgeted at 42 million, it might lose money when you add in the marketing costs and.
But when it's all said and done, the first movie, made a lot of money. If you combine the two, really, they did okay because there's still the video market, cable, etc., etc., etc. So that's not too bad. But we won't be seeing another Hobo Bosses probably.
Definitely not. It will at best do half as much as the first film.
Right, right. But I can conceivably see it as a straight-to-video release if. So
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
They can recycle the formula over and over and over.
Yeah, I can see them milking the video market.
Okay, let's move on to number 8, Dumb and Dumber 2, 2.7, 2.8 million over the weekend, 82 million domestic so far, and
surprisingly slow. Yeah, slow and steady. It opened huge on the first week, huge drop off on the second week, and then kind of steady from then on.
Yeah, I think it's one of those movies people, as I said in a previous podcast, people will get to it eventually.
Right.
And yeah, I think it's gonna hold over until the new year.
I think with Horrible Bosses 2 disappointing is like one of the few comedies out there. Even though top 5 it's only in 1,000 theaters, and top 5 targets, African American audience. And Dumb and Dumber 2 is like one of the few broad comedies out there.
Right,
probably the only. I could see some parents taking their kids to because it's just two dumb, goofy guys acting silly.
Okay. I'm not sure if Dumb and Dumber 2 is a comedy parents would take their kids to, but okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it looks like, it looks like it'll definitely get to 90 million. It might even possibly make it to 100 with the Christmas and New Year's coming. And I don't see any other big comedies opening soon, right? Even if it doesn't make it to 100, it might get to 95, for instance.
Okay, I think we'll have to keep a watch on it to see if it crosses 100 million.
Yeah, and at this point, it's a surprisingly successful film.
It is. At first, we thought that it would drop off, and it did.
Yeah.
But then it held on.
Yeah, it held on.
And it's nearing 100 million, which is surprising to us.
Yeah.
And now
with a budget of only 40 million.
Right, right. Initially, didn't do that well. Thought, hey, the sequel is out of the question, but hey, a possibility exists.
Yeah, I mean, it opened huge on the first weekend. We're like, hey, they'll definitely make part 3 now. And then it experienced a huge drop off on the second weekend, and then we're like, oh, this is going downhill. Cross out Dumb and Dumber 3. But
then, the mask.
Yeah, and the mask. And then afterwards, it held on pretty well afterwards. So it's been a roller coaster. But overall, it's on the up. It's trending upwards.
Okay, so let's move on to number 9, The Theory of Everything. 2.5 million, about 17 million domestic so far. And it didn't get nominated for any indie awards. I thought it would, but it didn't.
Oh, it didn't? I thought it did. I thought didn't it get nominated for a few Golden Globes?
Golden Globe? No, I'm talking about the Independent Spirit Award.
Oh, Independent Spirit. Okay, right.
But hey, it's holding on.
Yeah.
Doing okay.
These films, like The Theory of Everything, Birdman, Foxcatcher, they seem to be pretty consistent. Although Foxcatcher seems to be dropping off.
That is true, and remember when we talked about if any of those movies will go on to do 440? I don't think any of them will.
Currently, it looks like Birdman and The Theory of Everything could get to that level.
They might get a slight bump. Birdman got nominated, by the way, for Best Picture Independent Spirit Award and a couple of acting awards. But by the way it's going, I don't think so. It might get to maybe 30, but 40, no.
You never know, because I think The Artist was following a similar trajectory.
But like I say, The Artist is kind of like a different thing.
The Artist eventually ended up winning Best Picture, right?
Yeah, and it is a black and white silent movie in an era of talkies and color and special effects. So
I mean, exactly. If a black and white film can make it to 40 million nowadays, Birdman and The Theory of Everything has a chance. The interesting thing is you were putting your money on The Theory of Everything, and I was putting my money on Birdman. And it looks like both of them has the potential right now.
Okay, we'll see. I say they won't, but 30 I think is the best case scenario, but 40 is tough.
Right. I have my money on Birdman. You have your money on Theory of Everything.
Theory of Everything. If I have to bet, I have to bet on the romance.
Okay, so it looks like currently both of us could be right, or both of us could be partially right.
Actually, I'm not betting at all because I'm saying they're not going to make it.
You're saying you're right.
Yeah.
So I could be partially right.
You could be partially right. I'm just saying definitively no. It won't happen.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see. Number 10, Wild.
Oh, number 10, Wild. The
Reese Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon movie. Something about drug addiction, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like something about a girl who has a drug addiction who eventually took on a kind of spiritual journey by going on a road trip by herself and
hitchhiking or something like that.
Yeah, one of those finding yourself type of movies.
Right, getting good buzz, good reviews, and I think it has a couple of nominations. 1.5 million over the weekend. In its second week, it expanded to 116 theaters. Made 2.4 million domestic so far.
How are the reviews? Well, 92% on the tomato meter.
Yeah.
A nice comeback for Reese Witherspoon, at least critically.
As long as she stays away from romantic comedies, I think she'll be okay.
Yeah, it used to be her bread and butter.
I don't know. I think comedies, right? I'm not sure if she's
comedies.
I'm not sure if she's a romantic.
But it is good to see that she has the talent to be in films based on her acting talent.
And I think she's making a name for herself as a producer. She's one of the producers for this movie, and I think she's gonna do well when her acting career is done.
Yeah, which is good to see.
So, and I think probably she's gonna make more movies about women.
I could see this being like a thing that weighs her credibility, and she'll eventually do another comedy and get back to her 20 million payday and get back to being an A-lister.
Yeah, possibly. But I think she's at the point where money is good, right? But she could probably make more interesting film as a producer.
It's good to see people like Reese Witherspoon, like Chris Rock, who kind of, he didn't see his career going the way that he liked it to go. He likes it to go. Right. And he just kind of took the wings and wrote, directed, and starred, and I think probably even produces top 5.
Right. That's the thing. People have to realize you have to. You can't wait for people to give you movies.
Sometimes you're the best judge of your own artistic abilities or your talent.
Exactly.
And sometimes you're the person who knows how to best put that into use. It's good to see these kind of career resurrections by people who kind of just went out there and took control of their own career. Kind of like even Sylvester Stallone. His career was going straight to video. And then he wrote and directed, Rocky, Rambo, The Expendables, and resurrected his career.
See, that's the thing. He has another skill other than acting. He can direct, he can write. As long as you can come up with a good concept. Right?
That's true.
Write out the treatment for it. give it to a real writer and to polish it.
I guess we can't see Arnold doing that, right?
No. Remember, this is a guy who can only say, "Go, get down."
I'll be back.
I'll be back. But then he did become governor of California.
Yeah.
He's quite successful, but Arnold is a guy who built his career on an image, this tough, muscled guy, but he's not that anymore.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Is there anything interesting that you see in the...
Inherent Vice is on a list somewhere. It's 19 spot, directed and written by Paul Thomas Anderson. Joaquin Phoenix, Josh Brolin, Owen Wilson, Reese Witherspoon, Benicio del Toro, Gina Malone, and Maya Randolph.
On a per screen level, 66,000 per screen, which is the highest at this week's box office on a per screen level.
So it's going to end up somewhere probably like his other movies, the 40-ish million range or so, maybe.
Right, yeah. I'm surprised Rosewater didn't do a little bit better.
Rosewater, the Jon Stewart movie.
It's only made $3 million. I mean, for indie film, I guess that's, I don't know, that's respectable, I guess. But I was expecting with Jon Stewart and his following that it would do a little bit better.
Well, I guess, but then again, it's not released in a lot of theaters.
Why? And there's probably only a certain segment of people who are interested in that subject matter.
For the audience, people might think, oh, Jon Stewart is a comedian.
Doing a serious movie?
Yeah, doing a serious movie, so I think there's some disconnect there. People might see his TV character as one guy, and, okay, he's doing a message movie.
Boyhood. Oh, okay. Boyhood is at 24 million.
Yeah, Boyhood, a movie that is one of the Best Picture nominees. It took over 12 years to film because Richard Linklater want to film these people really aging.
I want to see it. I haven't seen it.
It's an interesting concept.
Wow, I mean, at a budget of only 4 million, it's already made 24 million. In indie terms, it's a huge hit.
Right.
Okay. Oh, I saw Night at the Museum 3.
Oh, wow.
I thought it was amusing. Kind of lightweight Ben Stiller type of movie that's, entertaining for the family. I think it'll do pretty well.
Yeah. It's one of those big budget special effect movies for kids.
Doesn't have anything that's very objectionable or offensive. And it's amusing, so I think it's one of those safe films that families can take their kids to during Christmas and the holidays.
Okay, so let's look ahead to this weekend. Annie, the musical, The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies, and Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb.
How do you think Annie will do?
Good question. It is one of the new family-friendly movies. It has Jamie Foxx. I can't pronounce this name. Quebevele Wallace, the girl.
Oh, right.
Cameron Diaz.
So an ensemble.
Yes, and it's a musical.
And it's getting terrible reviews on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes. Okay, I'm gonna do 10 to 15. I think I have to.
For Annie.
Annie.
All right, 10 to 15 for Annie.
Yeah.
Box Office Mojo. I think the last time I read was predicting it to do like 100 million overall.
Overall. Oh.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, I'm like you. Even with all these stars, I'm thinking, 10 to 15.
Like you say, you have The Hobbit and you have Night at the Museum.
Although the thing with Annie is it might be one of those mother-daughter movies. 10 to 15 is where I would stick it to, but we might be underestimating that audience.
It's possible, but hey, I'm sticking 10 to 15, mainly because most of the people will go and watch either Night at the Museum or The Hobbit. If it made more, where do you think it will be?
You know what? I'm with you. I'm thinking 10 to 15, but if it makes more, I guess it would be 20 to 25. But I'm with you though. I'm thinking 10 to 15 too.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the holiday season as well. If there's one movie people will want to watch during this weekend, it'll probably be either Night at the Museum or The Hobbit.
Right. What's your number on Night at the Museum?
Night at the Museum. Wow. I think I'm gonna go a high.
Okay.
30 to 35.
30 to 35?
Yeah, but I think I might be underestimating it.
The first film opened to 30 million and eventually made 250 million. This is domestic.
Right.
The second film opened a lot better, 54 million, but eventually ended up grossing just 177 million, which is about 70 million less than the first film.
Yeah.
So the third one it seems like you could be right, 30 to 35. It seems like the interest level had leveled off a little bit after the second movie. So I'll stick with you. Maybe I'll go 40. How's that? You're 30 to 35?
Yep.
I'm going with 40.
All right.
What about The Hobbit?
The Hobbit. Yes, I'm going like 45 to 50.
That's it?
It could be more. I don't know. You think it's gonna do 60?
If it only does 40 to 45, it will be considered a flop. Because the first film opened to 84 million. The second film opened to 74 million. So I'm expecting this is going to be the film that ends the whole trilogy.
Okay, I think you're right. I underestimated this by a lot.
Well, are you gonna come up with a new figure?
I will come up with a new figure.
All right.
Okay. Let me get on my prediction cap. Taking a deep breath. Okay. Weekend. The Hobbit. The Hobbit. The Hobbit. Final movie. It's gonna have this big battle. But Christmas, December. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna go with 70 to 80. How about that?
70 to 80?
70 to 80.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Because number one is the film that's gonna end the trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is the most action-packed of the series.
Mm-hmm.
It's a film where you get what's in the title, the Battle of Five Armies. That's the whole film. It's five armies and they do battle.
Before it was called The Hobbit, There and Back Again, until they changed the title to The Battle of Five Armies.
Yeah, which is pretty much what the movie is about. I liked it because after the previous two Hobbit films, I thought the second Hobbit film was better than the first, and I feel like the Battle of Five Armies ends the series on a bang. It opens with with Smaug destroying the whole village, and then it follows that up by this battle with five armies, and they just
right. You know what? I got my share of battles in The Lord of the Rings.
Okay. Well, you can always watch more.
Right, I can, but I think I have to wait a couple years to let that wear off.
But I thought it was very exciting.
Oh, cool. So how do you feel about Peter Jackson's decision to make it like HD?
Oh, in HD? You mean the 48 frames? 48 frames per second?
No, it's not the 48 frames. It's just like HD where everything is in focus. It looks like TV.
You know what? When you watch it in I get what you. Sometimes I do notice that, but when you watch it in 24 frames per second, it's not that noticeable. But when you watch it in 48 frames per second, it is noticeable. And it's noticeable only because of all the detail that you're seeing. So it's harder to hide things. Like sometimes props do look like props.
Yeah, that's exactly. And it seems like there's so many things to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Your eyes starting to wander around, even though the action is happening right there with the people, and then you start focusing on, like you say, the props, because it's so clear.
In the previous two films, you only focus on the props during the slow moments. Moments when they're talking or they're making a speech. Then you notice these things. But when during these battle sequences, you don't, your focus is on the battle sequences. I mean, overall,
which is really CGI.
Yeah. Overall, I do like it though. I do like the 48 frames per second format because the detail is just amazing. I mean, one of my criticisms about previous 3D movies and a lot of people's criticism, even for Avatar, is during action sequences when it's 3D, it's hard to make out the movements clearly. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just a bunch of blurs.
Right.
Whereas in the Hobbit films, when you're watching it in 3D and 48 frames per second, the battle sequences are very smooth and very clear.
Mm.
So when I saw that, I'm like, wow, this is the ultimate. You get the 3D, and you get this clarity of movement and all this physicality, and it's all very smooth and very clear, and not a jumbled mess. So overall I actually like it, because nowadays whenever I see a 3D movie or even a 2D movie, it always looks blurry to me. Overall, I do like it. I do feel like it's an upgrade from cinema, especially 3D.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we reached the end of our podcast.
Yep, and this week I think we agreed on everything.
Yeah, well, I have to revise my numbers a bit.
Right.
But still, okay, yeah, we seem to be in agreement, and we'll come back next week to see how we did. And remember to like and subscribe, and see you next week.
Yeah, happy holidays. I guess this is the time to rush out and buy your presents if you haven't already bought them.
Yes. Okay, signing off.